Okay.
All
Can
right,
everyone?
awesome.
Okay, awesome. Okay. Well, good morning. Hello. I'm James Krasinski. You can call me Jim. My pronouns are he, him, his. I've been a HSE, GED math instructor for Oakton Community College for the last 10 years. I also currently work as a math paraprofessional for Niles West High School. Today, I'm going to be covering various online resources and teaching strategies that I've been using this past year in both my adult ed classroom and the high school classrooms I've been working in. But please note the following: these strategies and tools I'm going to be using can be used both like in-person and hybrid setting, primarily used in remote. Also, the strategies mentioned today can also be applied to other resources that you might already be using, and I'll mention that throughout the presentation. And just to warn you, I do live near a railroad track, so if you hear like a train behind me, I'm very sorry. If you can't hear me, I'll try to monitor the chat if you can't hear me. Okay, let's get going. Okay, so first off, the agenda for today, I'm going to go over some general teaching strategies that I use when picking online tools. I'm going to review specific online tools I use in my classroom. You may be familiar with some of these tools, but I'll go over some strategies that I use with them. Finally, I will have you all reflect and try out ClassKick if you want, and I'll also model how I use it in my classes. Okay, so some general remote teaching tips and strategies that I use. Even though I teach mostly in the math classroom, these strategies would work for any subject matter. So just to warn you, a lot of the examples I'm going to be showing are math, but a lot of the tools I'm using has sources for a variety of subjects. So my first strategy is always demonstrate the tool. To get the most out of these online services, you need to demonstrate how you want your students to use them. I usually show them the important features, buttons, because even though some of the tools seem obvious to us, it might not be obvious to the student. And I, during the remote setting, I usually do like to share my screen and I pretend to be them. Two, I usually try to set expectations for my students. I let them know what I'm expecting them of how they should be using the tool, both like what they should be showing me inside the tool and also what they should be doing outside the tool, like if they should be writing on the side, etc. And I'll go more into that later in the presentation. And then finally, oh, no, not finally. Also, sorry, did not mean to go there. Also, let your students explore and help each other. The best way for the student to actually get to know the tool and actually use it is to mess around with it. So I usually try to give them an assignment before I use it so that they could kind of play around with it and see if they have any questions when they get into class. And also they could ask me before class, especially if they're having issues with it. Also, if you're remote, you can also, if you're in Zoom, you can do breakout rooms and you can actually have them kind of help each other. I do this a lot in my IT bridge class that I teach. Like I was teaching them how to use the Google Suite, like how to use Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides. And they're actually helping each other like go through, they're like, I can't see this, can you see this? And actually that helped a lot, especially sometimes the students can say something that you might not think of saying to help another student understand. I suggest when you get to know the students, try to be strategic when you're setting out the breakout rooms or the groups, just so that you kind of like have like some people who are strong with technology with people who are weak with technology, kind of like as if you were trying to split them in terms of like, you know, like you might want to have someone who might be a little bit stronger in their math or reading skills with someone who might be lower so they can help each other. Also, plan extra time and keep it simple. Especially with being online, technical issues happen every so often. So try to keep it. I try to keep it as simple as possible. Some conditions that I try to pick for my online tools would be: do not require the student to have a login if possible. So if I could give them a link or a code, that's best. This avoids confusion about logging in and possibly forgetting logins and passwords. Also, if I can give codes and links, I could quickly give them in a chat, in an email, or a text. This is especially time saving because sometimes teaching remotely, like you can't teach as much material online as you might be able to do in person. So I try to maximize as much time as I can with materials. Also, I try to pick tools that I can track to see if the students are in there and if I could see what they're doing. or at least see where they are in the tool. And always have a backup. Like, for example, I use a lot of Google Slides, so I make sure I make a PDF of my slides and a PDF of my material so I could quickly send it to them so they can kind of do it on their own, even though I might not be able to see them do it. So those are things you might want to consider when picking some online tools. So I kind of broke up the online tools I'm talking today into kind of two groups, like organizing classroom materials and tracking student progress during a lesson. The two I'm going to be talking about classroom materials are Google Docs and Remind.com. And the tracking tools I'm going to be talking about is Quizzes and ClassKick. So some of you might be familiar with some of these. I'm going to kind of skim over a few of them, but really talk about ClassKick because I know that's something that most people might not have seen in the adult ed space. Okay, so first, Google Docs. I know one of the most common uses for Google Docs is for students to create an online essay, share materials, maybe use it as a group discussion tool. I actually use it as a virtual classroom organizer or a makeshift learning management system. At Oakton, our GED HSC program doesn't have an LMS system that we use, such as Canvas, Blackboard, or Brightspace. So in order to get the materials to my students, I create like basically a classroom calendar or schedule. So it contains all our links, our topics covered, all the materials and worksheets I give. And what's nice about this, I could just send a quick link to my students via text, via email. I usually send the schedule in my welcome email to my students at the beginning of the semester and also at the end of every class. I'm like, hey, remember our homework is on the schedule. And I'm going to show you a sample. So this is the student view, how students would view this. This is a sample one of what I use. This is not the one I'm using this semester, but I always have my classroom materials or classroom resources such as my website and my syllabus. I also contain important reference materials up here, such as the calculator review packet. And you could, like, if you're a reading language arts teacher, you can put like vocabulary or a dictionary or a link to a dictionary or important sites that you find are important. And then below I have the schedule, like I break down the session and what day they are on, what topic we are covering. And what I like about this is, like, if you click on here, you can see my PDF of my PowerPoint that I'm using. And also here's like an answer key that I did for the student. And then for the homework, like I said, quick links. Here's a quick link to a PDF worksheet. And also here's a quick link underneath it to a quizzes assignment. And you might be thinking, oh, one annoying thing is like, I have to keep on updating this every week. Well, yes and no. You can kind of do some pre-planning. In Google Docs, there is a suggesting mode. And if you're in suggesting mode, you can actually, you can actually suggest changes, such as I could click on here and click a link. I could say I want this to be graphing equations. And now when I go to student view, or if I go to the viewing, how they're going to view it, they don't see that link yet. But if I were to go to editing view, I could just hit this little check mark and it automatically activates. One thing is, if you do this for each and everything, that might cause like a lot of those links. If you're looking for a specific one, I'm going to undo that. Let's say I'm also going to put a link here. And then I'm just putting random links for right now, just to show you, like, you could actually paste the link. Oops, you could paste the link right in there, like insert link. And I'm going to do that. Oh, because I'm in editing mode, you have to make sure you're not in editing mode if you want to go into suggesting mode. Sorry about that. So you can kind of go like this. Like this. So you could kind of pull up your documents, and now I have all these check marks. If you want to go to a specific one, all you have to do is like click on it, and then it pops up and you could just say yes. So now when I go to student view, that pops up. Any questions on using the Google Docs as a scheduler? Okay, and it's okay if you don't have any questions now. I also have time at the end if you have any additional questions. But I love Google Docs because it's on the server. It's quick access, and it actually helps me keep myself organized because I have all my classroom materials right here. I could just click it and I'm ready to go. And also, like I said before, you can actually set up future lesson plans. And you could create this any way you want, especially for however your students might want to view it. Have you had any technical issues during your webinar? Oh, never mind. Okay. So another tool I use to help communicate is Remind. It's remind.com. And I'm kind of proud to say that this is actually a program that was written by a Niles West student. So I'd like to point that out. Some of you might use WhatsApp or other tools. The material, some of those might not have the same functionality, but you can do similar things. What I like about Remind is you can actually use it. You can text all the students at once without having to use a group text, so you don't have to share everyone's number. Which, can you archive specific students in Remind? You can't archive them, but you can actually, if they're like, let's say they move to a different course, you can actually quickly move them to a different course. How I use it during class, if our Zoom goes out or I need to reschedule, I quickly send a quick remind to all the students saying, hey, I'm having technical issues. Let's meet back up in like maybe 30 minutes. During breakout room, students can actually ask me questions when I'm in different breakout rooms. So they could use the raise hand feature in Zoom, but it's kind of nice when they're like, hey, Jim, I'm having an issue, and I could just pop right in there. Also, if they are doing individual work during a Zoom and you want to see what their work, they can quickly take a picture and send it to you. And it's not getting caught up with all your personal text, or if you use a Google Voice number, it's not getting all messed up in there. It goes all in Remind, which is kind of nice. Also, what I like about it is you can actually schedule text alerts in advance. I use this to remind students about our class meeting and also when classes begin. So at the beginning of the week, I set up reminders the day at the beginning of the day at 10 a.m. saying, hey, remember, we have class tonight. And then I set a reminder when class begins, like, hey, class is starting now. And I don't have to, I could do that like on Monday for my class on Wednesday, which I really like. Also, what's nice about it, you can get notifications via text, email, or using the Remind app. I usually have my students do it via text, and you could do it via text so that they actually respond more if you text them versus if you email them. And then if we have time, I'll go over how I could schedule text at the end. What I show to my students at the beginning, because they can text, if you want them to have the texting version, I usually say, hey, try texting this code to the number 81010. And when I show them this slide, 2 reasons, just so that it's like, hey, do this. And also I have this little graphic of the phone, and this is actually, you could actually get this from remind.com itself. And I put the code right here. And why I do this is I've had students text the code, and then in their text message, they put 81010. So I want to make sure that they don't do that. And I've also had where I have a Google Voice number. I let them, just in case if something doesn't work, they text that to my Google Voice number instead of 81010. And I also put this other thing, because sometimes, depending on what service they have, the 81010 sometimes doesn't work, so they can also text this number. So this is a nice way to kind of avoid some technical issues going forward. Okay, let's see. Now, yeah, so how to schedule in Remind. What you do, going back to this screen, whenever you do a new announcement, there's a little icon that has a little little watch. You click on that and you set the date and the time. Oh, can you you can actually text a few students. You can text them individually. You can't text a group of them together, but you can give a message to 3 people. Well, actually, no, you can. You can actually text 3 different people at once with the same message. And then when they respond, they could only respond to you. But if they don't want to do the text, you can also set it on their app, and they can also set so that it goes to email. I prefer that it goes to text because then they actually respond. Okay, one of the other sources I use is Quizizz. It's quizizz.com. This can be used to create online quizzes and homework. How I use it during class, I use it for warm-ups and exit slips. I do it at the beginning of every lesson. I usually do 5 to 6 questions. This kind of gives me an idea if they're usually they're prerequisite topics to see if I need to kind of see where I need to adjust my lesson. I'm also able to track student progress. So this allows me to see what questions students are on and if they got correct or right. So one view that you can see as an instructor is below. You must create a Quizizz account in order to view this. And what's nice about this is you can kind of see, like, for this assignment, this was actually a homework assignment I gave them. Question 8 was one that they really struggled with. So this allows me, one, either I programmed the question wrong or this is a question I need to go over. So I know to immediately go to that question and talk to them about it. Also, this allows me to see if the students are present. So in class, like I could actively see if they are in class, if they are actively in there. And students actually kind of like it because it kind of acts like a game. And actually, when you send them a link, it kind of says join game. So it's not like, it's a little less stress in terms of like test anxiety. And you actually can create games, like do a class game with it. And actually I did that with my IT Bridge class. I had them break it, like they create groups. I create breakout rooms based on their groups and quizzes, and they kind of work together on questions, which I thought was kind of nice. What else do I want to say about this? Students can actually redo classroom activities. You could do in class as long as they have the link. If they did not create their own Quizizz account, they have to have the link to get back into the assignment. And I usually put that in my online schedule or in my PowerPoint so that they have it there for them to use. Then I also create homework assignments for every lesson. I create like a 15 to 20 question Quizizz assignment for them to do. And they're more likely to do the Quizizz assignment than they are to do the paper assignment. But I put both just in case if one likes paper versus the online. And I try to make them similar, different questions. So if they wanted to, they could do both the paper and the Quizizz assignment. And I do that on purpose so that, like, if they want extra practice, they can get extra practice. Also, they can get extra practice for themselves. They can actually go to quizizz.com and look for specific quizzes for themselves if they want. And it is free to actually create an account. There is a free version and a pro version. The free version has basically most of the features the pro version does. One thing it doesn't have is, like, you can't open a quiz forever, but you can, like, set a due date for a quiz for them to complete it by. But you can always create a new assignment, and that will create a new link for them, and you just send that to them and they can do it. Yeah, but it's free for the instructor to create an account. It's free for the students. But for the instructor, there is a paid version, but you do not have to use it. So talking about my expectations earlier, I usually show my students this slide because there's a lot of multiple choice questions in quizzes. And I notice if it's a multiple choice question and it looks like this, they just randomly start selecting. So I say, okay, guys, I want you all to look at this question. I just don't want you to randomly click. I want you to actually try working it. And this should be what you're showing on a separate sheet of paper, on a dry erase board, or on like a whiteboard on your, like, maybe tablet. I also encourage them to, like, use guessing only if they have no idea how to do the problem, because the GED doesn't penalize them for guessing. However, that shouldn't be their first strategy. Good question. So some benefits and drawbacks. So you can ask fill in the blank questions. You can ask multiple choice. You can ask multiple selection. There's a large teacher created, I want to point out, teacher created question bank. You can create and edit questions. You can also pull from the other instructors' question bank, or not question bank, but questions from those that are fine to share. And you can also edit them, which is kind of nice. Students' answers get submitted automatically, so you do not have to wait for them to hit, like, submit. Once they select their answer, it gets submitted to you automatically. You can set time limits for questions. You can say each question should take about 2 minutes. I think you can range from as little as 30 seconds to 15 minutes in terms of time limits per question. You can also give them a link or a code, like I said before. Oh, just as a warning, if you do give them the code, make sure to say, if you go to, usually when you give them the code, you say go to joinmyquiz.com and enter the code.
I have all my stuff.
Enter the code. But if you do that, you have to be aware of, hold on, okay. You have to be aware of, that they might use the code as their name. So make sure when they type in their name, say, make sure if it says name, type in your name. I've had people use the code and I see the code instead of their name on there.
Don't step on those
Oh, I'm not going to show how to create a quiz because I want to focus more on ClassKick, but if I have time at the end, I'll show how to do a quizzes. Also, some drawbacks. Because it's a teacher-created question bank, you actually have to check to make sure that it's correct, that there aren't any spelling errors, that there aren't any answer errors, because it's not a publisher who does like review process of it. So you need to make sure when you're pulling from another instructor that you're making sure that the questions are correct. Also, the students must answer the questions one at a time. Once they answer a question, they can't go back. That's a drawback, and that's why I only use it for homework and for exit slips and warm-ups. I don't use it for quizzes or actual assessments in class, like larger assessments, because I want them to be able to go back and forward throughout, kind of like how the GED is. Okay, so let's see, how much time do I have? Okay, I think we have enough time to do ClassKick, and I'll show quizzes at the end if people want me to show you quizzes. ClassKick, it's classkick.com. We use this a lot in the high school. What's nice about it is you can create online notes, quizzes, and homeworks. Use this during class. I track student progress. You can see what slide the student is on. This allows students to work ahead if they want to. You can also check if the students are present. There's a filter, and I'm going to show you that in a bit, and how you can see if students are online or offline. Students can also redo assessments, kind of like quizzes, but if they do not create an account, they must have the link to get back in. And they must enter their name in exactly how they put it in initially. Also, you can create homework assignments. I avoid doing homework assignments in quizzes, not in quizzes, in ClassKick, because there is a 20 assignment limit in the free version of ClassKick. There is a free version just like quizzes and a paid version. I use the free version of ClassKick for my GED classes, and it does all the features. The one thing it doesn't do is you only have 20 assignments. That's the limit. But once you reach that 20, you can actually delete and get more assignments. And so I'm going to show you some benefits. You can create fill in the blank, multiple choice, drag and drop. And I love the drag and drop feature because they call it manipulatives, but essentially for GED, I call it drag and drop because that's what the GED calls it. You can edit ClassKicks and grade after assigning. So like, let's say like there's an error in your ClassKick. Once you assign it, you can actually make changes to it after, which is kind of nice that quizzes doesn't have. You can also see students working in real time. Some of the students' answers get submitted automatically, some don't, so I have to show, some students get graded automatically. And you can give them a link or a code, and students can actually raise their hands to ask questions if there's a specific question. The one drawback, there is no question bank like quizzes. But what's nice about it is you can actually upload PDFs of your worksheets and just have a worksheet. You don't need to have any of the special questions, but you can add the special questions, which does take a little bit longer. It does work better with a tablet if you want any kind of writing, but there are ways around that, and I'll show you that in a bit. Okay, so I think the best way to get to know ClassKick is to actually play around with it. So I'm actually going to do a class demo of how I'm going to how I model it, and I'll have you guys practice with it as well. You can participate if you want to, but if you're at home and you just want to observe, I'm going to have everything on the screen. So, and this is kind of what I do in my classes too, because sometimes depending on what kind of device the student has, they might not be able to do ClassKick. So I say, I'm like, okay, for those of you who can do ClassKick, do it. If you're having troubles, do everything on a separate sheet of paper. I'm going to project everything on the board for you or on the screen for you so that you can see, so that you can do it. And if they want to do it later, I give them the link and they can do it later if they want to. So how to get into ClassKick in the demo. In the chat, what I'm going to put in here is a ClassKick link. Oh, it does work with smartphones. It is because it acts kind of like a PDF where you could write on top of. They can do it on their phones. It is a little bit better to use with a tablet, but you can with a smartphone. So before I give you the link, when you log in, for your name, make sure your name is unique. And by that, like if there are multiple Jims or Johns or Janes or something, if I put in Jim and there's another Jim in here, we will log into the same ClassKick. That's one drawback. If you have a small class size like I do, I usually don't have many people with the same name. If I do, I tell them make sure to put either like Jim 1 or put Jim K, like your last initial, just so that they create a unique code. But like I said, they can create an account and save it to their own account. But if you're just having a quick link, make sure that you make a unique code. So if you want to be anonymous, you could make a fake name and put like 1, 2, 3, or put a random number at the end, and that will be fine. So I'm going to put this in the link right here. Let's see, can I copy and paste this? Control copy, Control V. So you can either click on the link, or if you want to do it on a different device, you can go to classkick.com. And when you go here, you're going to hit login, go to student, enter this code, and then enter your name. And I'll just give it a couple, like just a minute here to see if people want to sign in. Let's see. Okay, so if I have a few people logging in, and I'm going to pretend to log in myself. I'm going to log in. So this is what you should, and just to warn you, it works best in Google Chrome, but it does work in Safari. It does work in Firefox. It just doesn't have like, the main thing I notice the difference is if you're editing something as a teacher, it's a little bit more cumbersome, but as a student end, I haven't seen any issues. So I'm going to hit continue to ClassKick. Type in my name and put Jim K. Hit enter. So I always put a title slide. You don't have to. Like I basically downloaded my slide deck as a PDF and I uploaded it to here. And here are the kind of tools that you have. Depending on what device you're viewing it on, it might be in a different location. Like I know for the Apple iPad, all these things are at the bottom versus the top in some locations, but just to warn you. Right here is the zoom feature. Like you could zoom out, you could zoom in, and notice how I have this slide here and it gives you extra space. So if you want to write underneath it, you can. Here is the pencil tool. So you can actually write on top of here. And if I write on top of here, since I'm a student, I don't, you're not writing on anyone else's, you're just writing on your screen. I can actually see your responses as a teacher, but you won't, no other student will see it. And then here is the text tool. So you can actually create a text box and type in answers. I usually have students do this if it's like very basic numbers that they have to type in. If I don't have any inputs, I just want to see what they have as an answer. You can also have lines. I use this for graphing. You can also, they can add links. Like if they had like a video or they want to put a link here, they can put a link. They can actually take a picture of their work and upload it to this. And what's even nice, it has a microphone. You could actually add audio and you can actually start recording, or you can select a file. This is great for like if you have ESL, or if you're like for me, if the students are struggling writing it out, I kind of want to know if they know the concept versus maybe they might not know the nomenclature. I'm like, just put a recording of what you're doing. And so they could kind of do it step by step in how they're doing it. The one drawback is, as an instructor, if you do that, you have to listen to the whole thing. You can't like skip ahead. Like you have to like, if you stop playing it, it plays it back from the very beginning. That's the one drawback, but it's a nice thing to have. Then here's the slide tool. You can actually go, you could skip slides if you click on it, or you can go one by one and click here. So if you're on ClassKick on your device, I'm on slide 2. Slide 2, as you can see, is I have multiple choices. I have fill in the blanks. For this multiple choice tool to work, one of the most common mistakes I see students do is they take the pencil tool and they're like, I'm going to circle this. Well, that doesn't grade it for you. If you want them to actually, for the program to grade it, the student has to use the little arrow icon and then select a choice. And you could kind of put like a little direction on there, or you could just tell them the first day, and once they get used to it, they kind of get the idea. And notice how I have the answers turned off. And the reason why is I found students do this until they get the correct answer. So I have it turned off initially, but if they're doing it at home, I just turn on the answer so they can see it. And actually, I'll show you. I'm going to turn on my answer right now. Let's see, turn on answers. Let's see, I have to go to assign and turn on grades. Okay, so now when I do this, oh, maybe I have to refresh. Now you see it's grading it as red. Also, you can do fill in the blanks. You can have it be numbers. You can have it be letters. Like for example, which line has an undefined slope? In this case, it's line E. It's a vertical line. So I could type in E, or not E, it's actually D, sorry. E is a horizontal line. So as you can see, this is wrong. I could type in D and that will be correct. But if you do fill in the blanks, you have to make sure you add in every possible correct alternate answer. You can override if like they're like, okay, that's the right answer. I didn't think of it. You can add it later, but just to warn you if you're using it for grading. Also, you can use the fill in the blank as a short response. So like what causes this one, you have to grade on your own because there's too many alternate corrects to program in if you wanted it to. But you could say the line is undefined because its run is 0 or something like that. You could write, and you could kind of get an understanding, which is kind of nice. You could use this for English, like you have short responses. You could put those in on your PDF documents. One thing, if you are pulling from a PDF, like you have to make sure, like if it's good to put in that, or you just want them to write like below it. So it depends on what kind of PDF you're pulling from. Another cool one is the drag and drop, or the manipulative. I use this for my class, like to use the calculator. Like I say, okay, how do I get that onto my calculator using these buttons? And so what's nice is you can actually click on here and drag the buttons in sequence. And so if I were to do this one, I could say, okay, I do N over D. I do 7 minus 8. And so kind of get some practice, and they could do it on their calculator. Say, do this on your calculator and then tell me which buttons you're pressing. And I love this because it's kind of nice, especially if like some students don't have the calculator yet. Because I have some students who like we're working on getting them the calculator and it just hasn't arrived yet. So this is a nice way for them to kind of still use it, but not. And there's different ways you could organize it. This is how I do it, and try to make it easy. Also, another way you could use drag and drop is you can use it for vocabulary. Like I had this for my IT Bridge class where I'm like, I want you to drag and drop and tell me what each of these things are, give me a picture example, and then drag in a definition. And so I try to make sure that the images fit so that when they put them in, that it actually goes over. But that's what I love about the drag and drop. Oh, do I create all the images? Yes, you have to create all these images. Like I pull, and I'll show you how I do that in a moment. And then on the last page, like if you want, you guys can say like what you guys do in your classroom, what your thoughts about ClassKick, how would you use it? And this is kind of a nice if you're doing like a discussion. And I'll actually show you from the instructor side what I see. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to make sure I'm hiding all your names just in case if you guys don't want to. have your names being shown. So here's from my end, like here's my instructor tool. Notice I have a basic account, so I can only have 20 assignments. If I want to create an account, oh, and I forgot one important thing, the raise your hand feature. This tool right here, this little hand, you can say, please help, or you can say, please check. And I tell my students there's a difference. If you want me to check your work that you don't have a question, but you just want to make sure you're right, hit the check. If you have a question that you're like, I have no idea how to do this, please use the please help. The reason why is because that helps me like know where to go, like which student I should go to first. Like if they just need help, if they just need to check, I'm like, okay, I'll do the person who needs the help first. And so here's from the instructor end. If I want to create an assignment, I hit this. I can create a new blank assignment. I can upload from a file. And so, like I said before, I upload from a PDF version of my slide deck, and I got this. And so this is what it looks like from my side. Notice I can add a slide. I can duplicate slides. I could say copy, and I can actually, just to warn you guys, if you're using it, I'm going to hit paste. You're going to see a second. It might take a second for it to do it. Oh, if you want to move your screen up and down on your phone, okay, yes. There is on a tablet device, there should be like little cross arrows that kind of look like up and down arrows. You click on that and then you can drag and like you can actually like use your finger to go up and down the page. If you're on a desktop, you're going to have this. So yeah, there's another tool on the tablet where there's like it's like a compass. So you hit that and then you're able to go up and down. So notice I have a duplicate of this. And what's nice is like, let's say I want to change this problem out and I have another problem. I could just do copy and paste and just change out some of the tools. Also from the student end, if you want to see what I see with you guys in there, I'm gonna make sure, okay, hid the students' names. So notice I have all your names hidden. So, and it kind of gives like little cute names like Beaming Bear, Bold Bird, Brave Bear, Broadsided Bear, etc. And I can see who's on there. I can filter it. I can hide offline students. So I'm only seeing students that are online. You can also change it to like hide students that never started this assignment. Yeah, if you want to enlarge, you can actually do like the finger, like you could actually zoom in and zoom out by doing the, I forgot, like you just take your fingers and you spread them out on the thing, which is nice. And yeah, you can move it side to side. Like I know for my iPad, if I use 2 fingers, I can move it side to side, or I use that tool. But that's what's really nice. And what's really cool is I can actually go to someone, since I don't feel bad, I could say here, I could go here, and let's say I want to leave them feedback. I can actually write on their slide and say, I could say, hi, please try again, or something like that. And it shows me if they got it right or wrong. I can also add stickers. And this, remember, this is kind of meant for kids, but I use this for my adult ed too. I kind of like say, check this image. I'm like, okay, or not check this image. I'm gonna change that. Check this problem. And you can assign point values, but I usually do this to say, I'm like, hey, please check this. And when you see that on your side, you'll see like teacher left feedback. You'll see a little bell icon, like this little bell icon that pops up, and so forth. So it kind of shows, you can kind of do it at a glance. I can also view slide by slide. So I'm like, okay, everyone, we're going to be on slide 1. And so I'm going to look at slide 1. I can see who's on slide 1 and what they're doing. And I could kind of go to slide 2. And the reason why I like using Google Slides to create it is because in the teacher view, you only see so much. And the Google Slide is the perfect size to see like what everyone kind of did. And I kind of like it. And notice right here, I see someone raise their hand. And then I can actually click on here and go to that person who needs help. And what you can do here, if they have help, you can actually chat with them on here, or you can write on here. Usually if the student has struggles with this, I say like, if you have a question, write it on your screen, like write it like right here. or whatever. You can also lower your hand. Once the teacher writes on here, it lowers the hand automatically. And that's what I like about this software. But I know some of you are wondering like how I got this manipulative. What I can do is I can actually, there's this tool right here called Add Manipulative. I could select a file, and I'm going to select, I'm going to do my classroom background. And notice I could say I want this to be here. So I could select this image, hit next, add another image. I could say, okay, I want this. Hit next, I can add another image. I can add my computer. And so if you have all the images that you want in one file, you can actually quickly do it all at once and then add it and hit finish, and it'll add to your slides. I'm not going to do that because it's going to be really weird, but it basically, I'm going to discard these images, but it'll pop it all in a row, and then you physically have to move them to the right places. Oh, actually, I do this live in class. I do this live in class because I don't have enough, like, I don't, because I do more than a couple of classes, so I try not to use all 20 of my assignments. So you can use it as an assignment. And this also makes a good quiz, like if you want to see them show their work. And actually, I had some students, I do an SAT prep class as well. And some students actually take a picture of their work and they paste it right on there, which is kind of nice. And also, like I said before, you can adjust someone's grade. Like you could say, okay, you want to make this worth 3 points. I'm going to make this worth 3 points instead. And so it changes the point values. Also, if you don't want them to see their work, you could do assign. I have it assigned to my presentation roster, but notice I have an IT bridge class. I can assign it to them as well. Or you can create a new roster. Okay, about 3 minutes left. Any other, oh, also what's nice is you can actually add in helpers, which means if you raise your hand, someone else in the class can help you. But when they do that, it's anonymous. So you don't know who's helping who, but it's kind of a nice way. I usually turn it off because I'm like, I just want it to be me at the moment. But I can also, this is where I turn on and off the grade. Yeah, the helper tool is really awesome. I really think it's really helpful. I only do that after I kind of get them used to doing it. But yeah, so you can, depending on what you do, it really depends in what you put in here, depending on what device. Like if you have a lot like I'm doing, this might work best on a tablet or a PC, but you can adjust, you know, what kind of images or how big things are for them to use it on the phone. Any other last minute questions, comments, concerns? Yeah, it is difficult. Like I would say it is difficult on the phone, so I always suggest doing it. And that's why, like I said before, I'm sharing this. Like if I were doing it in class, what I do is I sign into the ClassKick as myself. And I would actually, what I do is, let's see, I forgot who's me. Which one am I on? I'm gonna actually raise my hand so I can say, please help. This is a way that you can actually find yourself quickly. So here's me. So what I would do is I actually show my screen. I'm like, okay, guys, we're on slide 2. So if you're at home and you're not using ClassKick, this is what we're doing. If you, please, if you have an answer, please, like, you know, text me, like either via Remind, or I said, type your answers into the chat. So I try to give them a couple different options if depending on what type of device, because all my students are on a different device. But actually, I've been noticing a lot in my GED classes or my HSE classes that the students, a lot of students have been actually on here. They don't actually write on here, but they actually use it to go back and forth so they can actually see it and go at their own pace. Any other questions? And actually, you know, we can actually, if there are none, we can actually go to, I could view slide 5 and we can take it. So if you have any suggestions or any kind of reflection of like what you use, yeah, so like Jamboard is another service that you can use. But yeah, a lot of it is you have to play with it, play around with it and see how it works. Oh, and what's nice about quizzes is with the game tool. Unlike Kahoot, like they see the question in front of them versus you having to project the question, which I like personally. But Kahoot is really cool too. I use that in class as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation and hope it gave you some ideas of what to use in your own classroom.